Hello, and welcome back to the Delve podcast. I'm Allie. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam. I'm the executive and clinical director at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Help us spread the word with this podcast. We're not trying for fame here. We're really just wanting to spread value to as many people as possible. We're not planning to run any ads, so the podcast is super listener friendly for everybody. So if you find value in this podcast, we ask that you please share it with at least one other person who you think could find value as well.
And I want to thank a few of the listeners appear to have been doing this because we've now got some listeners in both the UK and in Russia. So hello to both of you.
Wow.
And one of the values at Delve is international awareness and trying to make sure that the things that we're talking about have international value and an understanding of what's happening internationally. So let's spread geographically as well. It will make my little geophile heart so happy. And hello to those in the UK and Russia.
That's amazing. Hello. I love that. And I mean, one of the things I think we're passionate about is like, as therapists, without this podcast, we can only like spread what we're thinking about and only so far, with our clients and with our group therapy and all these things. But with this podcast, a lot of these great ideas can be shared worldwide. And so that's really exciting to hear.
What's really interesting about that too, I'm sorry, I'm going to pop off already, but there was a lecture I saw on models of public health and the spread of public health that I came across while I was in graduate school, and it's really affected the way that I think about trying to proliferate ideas in psychology, but services within psychology as well. So the idea is, let's say we're talking about somebody living in rural America. If they don't have a mental health clinic right down the street from them, how do you reach them? Well, maybe you do something like telehealth. That's great. Let's get somebody to do telehealth with them. But if you have somebody like myself, who's a licensed clinical psychologist with now at this point several years of experience, my caseload fills up. And so if the target is that somebody with a licensed clinical with a license in clinical psychology and a doctoral level graduate degree is going to be the one to provide the services, then each individual is only going to be able to reach somewhere between 15 and maybe 35. By the way, 35 is an insane caseload.
That's a big caseload, yeah.
There are a lot of therapists that are doing that, and they're tired, and it's hard, and burnout is high. And the empathy fatigue sets in hard. But anyway, so 15 to 35, if I'm being really generous. That individual can only reach that number of people with with those ideas in any given week, right? And that might sound like a lot, but there's not that many psychologists. And if burnout is high, then they're not even as effective as they possibly could be within those sessions. So one of the models for public health that I think could apply much better in psychology, is partly how Delve is organized, is a supervisory model. Whereas if you, Allie, as a supervisee of mine, can see, I'm not going to throw 35 at you, but let's say you take a caseload of 20, 25 at your discretion. Now, between the two of us, let's say I've got a caseload of around 20 and you've got a caseload of around 20. Now we're reaching 40 people with our two ideas rather than 30. And then if you can then supervise subsequent to that, now they can reach another 15, 20 people. And we're across the board having like one person's kind of ideas and supervision and monitoring can affect 60 people rather than 20. So that's that. Then you think about how do you get services to somebody in rural America or rural Botswana. This might be a better model where we try to train people on the ground. And then one other kicker, there is some evidence that if that basic mental health care may be able to be delivered more effectively by people who just have cultural knowledge. So it may be better, rather than like, let's say, let's get a licensed clinical psychologist to go and provide services in Botswana. It might be better to have a licensed clinical psychologist provide basic supervision or consulting services to a trained professional in Botswana, or even people with like some basic mental health training who aren't maybe they don't have a license per se, but they could provide some basic services, and I can provide supervision, and now we could spread across the globe in that way. Again, there's licensure laws, there's structures and strictures and standards across all of these different countries and nations and regions that we have to be both culturally and professionally and ethically sensitive to. But as a basic conceptual model, we can, rather than trying to provide direct services directly to clients, we can have the people with the most education providing supervision to people who know the culture.
Yeah.
And in that way, we can combine our knowledge sets and reach more people across the board.
I love that idea. I think it's really culturally sensitive while also like bringing in the expertise and the knowledge of those who are licensed. And yeah, with my clients, like, your voice is definitely in our sessions. And so they gleam like they get the benefit of your knowledge as a therapist in my sessions with them as well, because you are supervising me. So I think that's great.
And vice versa too, right? Like it goes the other way. So let's say I'm working with you, I learn from you as well. I both am teaching myself and learning from you. And so you imagine that in much more sort of culturally bounded, culturally careful care for people that are living abroad. I would also learn much more about the cultures of the people who I'm trying to help support and supervise. So you end up providing this feedback loop and a much more effective global awareness, which is one of our principles at Delph.
Yes. I love that. I love that whole model. And with that being said, we do have interns that I supervise, that Adam supervises. So if you're interested in our services and you do live in Illinois, reach out to us. We offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. Reach out for a consultation at delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And if you do live outside of Illinois, of course, you can listen to this podcast. We also have blog posts on our Substack. That's delvepsych.substack.com.
And at least as we record today, I think I can offer one pro bono slot. I have an intern that needs an hour, an additional hour. So I think we've got one pro bono slot. I'm sure it'll go quick. But at least as I'm recording today, we'll see where we're at when it comes out. But I think we've got room for one more of those pro bono slots. And we do still have some low sliding scale slots available.
Yes. All right. So speaking of our Substack, Adam, you've written a series of articles on the topic of boundaries, which I think is incredibly relatable and applicable to every single person listening. I'm sure at one point in your life, you've either been on the receiving end of someone else's boundaries, or you felt the need to set boundaries yourself. And maybe you're a little confused on how to best go about that. So I found these articles to be really, really helpful. Adam, how do you see people misusing boundaries, or what are their misconceptions about how we're supposed to set boundaries, or what boundaries even are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think these days I'm starting to see people almost weaponizing them or trying to weaponize them. And they're using them in a way to try to abdicate their own responsibilities in their own relationships, as well as to externalize the causes of their own emotions, if there is such a thing as a cause for one's own emotions. We'll get into it sometime. So it's let's say that a partner reaches out late in the evening just to say hey and how you doing, and the person receiving it has a reaction to that. They're like, hey, look, I'm busy right now, I'm hanging out with my people, I don't need to be like, now's not the time for us to be talking. I'm hanging out with my people and I need to be left alone, so you need to respect my boundaries. So the recipient of that may say, hey, no, that's totally okay, that's totally fair, I was just trying to reach out to you to see if you're available, I miss you. Like, well, you need to respect my boundaries. Or the person could say something like, hey, that's okay, we haven't talked in a few days and I would love to catch up with you soon. I was just trying to catch up with you. And the recipient of that, the person initially trying to set the boundary again could be like, hey, you need to respect my boundaries. I've set the boundary that you need to, like, I'm with my people and you need to, you hear the kind of youist kind of language here, even if my circumstance here is a little contrived. It's this idea of like, what you're doing makes me feel something. I don't want to feel that. And so I'm going to tell you to stop doing what you're doing. That's kind of weaponizing boundaries.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've experienced as well. This idea of like demanding things of other people, of like, you can't do this around me. You can't talk about this around me or say this thing around me because it upsets me. So you're not allowed to do this or this or this around me. That's my boundary. And yeah, I liked this sort of flip in perspective in your article, that boundaries are actually more, it's about you. It's not so much about the other person. It's about how the way that maybe like, so let's take the example that you give in your article with Nicola and Ivan. So Nicola and Ivan are in a romantic relationship, and Nicola finds that some of the stuff that Ivan says can be quite critical. So kind of your perspective on how Nicola can go about addressing her boundaries here is, instead of being like, Ivan, you need to be less critical, you say a lot of critical things, stop that. It's about Nicola kind of turning in and being like, okay, I have a need for emotional security, and I find that when Ivan says some of things that tend to be a little critical,
that I perceive as critical. We don't even know for sure that Ivan is being critical.
Thank you for that edit. Yes, that is true. Nicola finds that when these things that Ivan says that she perceives to be as critical, kind of inhibits her own pursuit of emotional security in the relationship. So it's about kind of checking in with your own goals, needs, and values. And the boundary setting is more about like, okay, what is going on in this relationship where I feel like I'm not able to fully pursue my goals, needs, and values.
Right, because it's entirely possible that whatever Ivan is saying or doing is actually somewhat neutral, if there was such a thing as some external arbiter who could decide externally that he has done no wrong. No such thing exists. It's all subjective. But even if he was completely unimpeachable in his behavior, she's still having a reaction, and that reaction matters. It's just not Ivan's fault. So, like, let's imagine he says something relatively neutral. She still feels that kind of threat or feeling, a kind of perception of criticality. So he's done nothing wrong. She still feels that criticality. We could imagine, well, he needs to stop that. He didn't do anything wrong. We could imagine, well, she just needs to eat that. But these feelings are valid. So instead, I think we can drop the demand. I love that you added that word. Drop the demand, and instead just try to hold truer the emotionality and the needs, the goals, and the values. So now Nicola's got some options. Check in with thyself, look inward, and try to figure out, what do I need? What do I need for myself? It's not about Ivan's criticality or non-criticality. Then we'll get into adjudicating whether or not he was actually critical or not. And there's no judge here. It's just two people talking. There's no judge.
Well, that could be a whole argument in itself. Like, you were being critical. No, I wasn't. I felt like that phrase was quite neutral. Well, I thought it was critical. And like, then we're getting into a fight on like what's critical and what's not.
That reminds me of a Love is Blind episode. You remember the cuties?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
I think a lot of people broke on both sides of that. One person's like, no, I get what he was getting at. And the other people are like, no, that sounded new. Like, and again, we're trying to get into the mind of the person who's making the statement. What do they mean? It doesn't matter what they mean. I had a reaction. Let's deal with that.
So instead of like trying to assess what his intention was in that moment, it's like, okay, well, my reaction to that like was still valid. I still felt something from that. So
we as a couple
can we do about that? Yeah.
And also, by the way, you'll see this in couples argumentation all the time is, hey, I wasn't trying to hurt you. Well, good. I'm glad. Just there's a difference between the intent versus the impact. The impact of a statement is still worth dealing with, even if there is no intention of harm. If we were like, if we were walking in a museum and I stepped on your foot and I had absolutely no intention of stepping on your foot, and you're sitting there saying, ouch, my foot hurts, it'd be weird for me to immediately be like, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I'm going to say, I'm sorry, man, you all right?
Right.
Because like, I don't want you to be hurt, and I see that you are hurt through no intention of mine. Something about my actions, though they had no intention to harm you, did harm you. And so we can deal with that as a fact. And the person who's done the thing can be like morally blameless. I wasn't stamping on your foot to try to break it. I didn't say that thing to emotionally wound you, but I see that your foot is now broken, and I see that your heart is also hurting, and we can deal with that. And I'm still a good person.
Right. And I care about you, so I want to work on this.
Exactly.
So there was something that you brought up too, in the first article, I believe, this idea of input boundaries and output boundaries. That was a new concept that I hadn't heard of before. So can you get into that a little bit?
I have to shout out Colleen Paul, who's been on the podcast here before. I was reading some of her notes as I was supervising her at one point, and she started talking about this. And I'm like, the hell's that? She taught this idea to me. But essentially, the input boundaries are the things that I'm not willing to receive. Notice that language. I'm not willing to receive. Not you can't do that. I'm not willing to receive this sort of thing. And output boundaries are things that I'm not willing to do in a given circumstance or relationship. So an example of an input boundary might be, this is a real one for me. I don't really tolerate, can you hear those sirens?
No.
What timestamp are we at?
We were at 2050.
So this is a real one for me. Like in my relationships, I really don't tolerate name calling. So if somebody was to call me a name in the midst of an argument or something of that nature, I'm setting an input boundary. I could say, hey, you're not allowed to do that. That's just a no-go for me, and you need to stop it. Or alternatively, and I've had to say this before, I might say, I tend to feel really sensitive to name calling in my friendships. And when you said this, it felt like that for me. When you said those things, it felt like that for me. And it just helps. It helps me so much in my friendships if we're able to kind of steer clear of things like that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you're willing to do that with me. The other person said, yeah, sure, totally fair. We've never done it again.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think that kind of brings into, we can talk about probably both of these things simultaneously, like hard boundary setting versus like soft boundary setting. I would say like your reframing of that in the second go around was more of a soft approach.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So input boundary when I'm not willing to receive, output boundary when I'm not willing to do. Hey, why don't you go pick up the laundry for the neighbor? It's like, look, I like your neighbor, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go do that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to help them out, but not that much. So what am I willing to receive? What am I willing to do? But then setting the boundary, as you're getting into, is, I think that there's some nuance here.
Okay.
Soft versus hard boundaries. So soft boundaries tend to be a bit more adjacent and a little bit more insinuating. It's less direct, and it's more kind of relying on the softer emotional relational skills between two people.
Yeah.
So not everybody has these in their back pocket, but I think it's worth it for any individual to practice and to try out with the people around them. I think it's a better first step to try soft boundary setting first versus a hard boundary, which is like, I swear to God, if you call me another name, I'm going to stop. Like, we're going to stop talking. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. So that would be an example of a hard boundary. Or if you can't, if I keep perceiving this experience of criticality, I'm going to have to leave and not come back and not play anymore. Those are more examples of hard boundaries where I'm telling you, like, I'm really at the end here. What I would encourage is soft boundary setting first. And you have a lot of options for this. So the way that I said it before, the way that I kind of shared it before, was this just makes me feel really uncomfortable in my friendships.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you that I have the emotion of discomfort in these kinds of settings. That's a pretty soft boundary. But I think in the article, I was also talking about you can go even softer than that, and certain people will be able to pick up on it. I'm trying to think of how we might do it with the name calling example for a super, super soft boundary. Okay. So maybe the person says the thing and you just go, ouch. You just say that. And they go, I'm sorry, you're right. I probably shouldn't say it that way. Some people will be able to pick up on it like that. You don't need to do much at all. Or perhaps you even just get a little quiet and they're like, well, that thing that I said, that bothered you? So very, very, very soft boundaries can end up involving a lot of nonverbals. It can involve a lot of adjacency. And I think where people get caught on this is they start to think that if we only ever soft boundaried, then the recipients of our boundaries would be sitting over there saying, like, you need to tell me what you want. You need to tell me what
direct.
you need. You know, be direct. Like, quit trying to like angle. It's not fair for you to have something in your head that you're not telling me out loud. All of that is correct. It's just that softer boundaries can work with emotionally intelligent people as well, especially well-meaning emotionally intelligent people that are communicating effectively, generally speaking. Soft boundaries do work, and there's no reason to go to hard boundaries and directness if you can use these softer approaches and people get it. Don't just use soft boundaries. Don't start at hard boundaries. Start at soft boundaries and escalate to the level that is required for the relationship to effectively communicate. So for the people in the relationship to effectively communicate. That's the idea.
Yeah. What do you think the benefit is to starting with soft boundaries? Is it you find the person on the receiving end, there's less defensiveness?
Absolutely. And it communicates a general belief in the other person's positive intention, goodwill, and general harmony in the relationship. It treats harmony and good faith efforts for friendship as the default in any relationship. I believe that we're good, we're well-meaning people, we care about each other, And so maybe just a thing happened. Maybe you just said a thing in an indelicate
Yeah.
way, or you got activated, or something came out of you in a way that you didn't mean. I assume positive intent first, and that's going to be my default mode. The default mode in the relationship is harmony. And disharmony is a thing that may happen sometimes, and we'll deal with it if we have to. But most of the time, we don't have to.
Right. And so with the hard boundary setting at first could come with this like subtext of like, wow, you had bad intent, or maybe you're not like capable of understanding how this affected me and hurt me. So that could cause some like rupture in the friendship or the romantic relationship, because it's not it's not assuming the best intention of the other person. It's not assuming that the person could understand how they could have affected the other person negatively. So it shows like, I don't know, a lack of like, I don't know, like a lack of emotional intelligence on the other person. Like you're assuming that they don't get it.
And it's possible that you've read correctly that they don't get it. So it's possible that you are actually still operating with high intelligence, and that your read of the situation is correct, that this person does probably need a harder boundary. Still start softer.
Mm-hmm.
Give them the opportunity. So don't call me an asshole. You're probably right? Like they called you an asshole. You're probably right to say, no, dude, that's not cool. And don't do that. That's fair. But what I'm arguing is you are still going to be better off if you want to maintain a relationship with this person.
Yeah.
You're still going to be better off escalating slowly from soft to hard. One, it communicates better communication to the other person. Two, if I'm receiving, don't be an asshole, or don't call me an asshole. If I have to receive that in a moment when clearly I'm already activated, then you've added one additional step that I have to navigate in order to get to effective conversation and learning about how to be in a relationship with you. So let's imagine this playing out. Hey, you're being an asshole. Don't call me an asshole. Look at where we're at in the relationship right in that moment, right? Just with that quick exchange. Person one, you're being an asshole, I would argue, is being judgmental. They're already activated, etc. Right? Like there's clearly some activation here. We add to it, don't call me an asshole. So now we're doubling down on the strain that's already there, and we're asking them to navigate simultaneously the feelings that they've already got, in addition to now this new challenge, this new threat of, you called me an asshole, and that's not acceptable. And I need to navigate all of that in one go. Versus let's imagine a softer version of that, where the person says, you're being an asshole, and the response is, hey.
Right.
It's a little easier. Or let's imagine the first response is just quietness, and then a little while later you give it 10 minutes to breathe. You come back and you say, you remember when you said that? That was really hard for me to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that approach could be, I don't know, just a better path to repair between the two people. So the last article that talks about kind of like receiving boundaries from other people, and it's like, I do think it can be hard to be on the receiving end of somebody else's boundaries, because we internalize and we assume, oh, this means there's something wrong about me. Like maybe I'm too much. I'm like too I don't know. I don't say the right things. I'm too emotionally unstable, and my friend can't handle this about me. And oh my God, like such a terrible friend. You know, it could go down like the spiral. And so I liked the advice that you gave in this article as far as like how we do receive boundaries. Like the boundaries at the end of the day are not about you. They're about the other person.
and their needs.
Yeah.
They're just trying to look after their own little heart. That's all they're doing. That's all. I mean, boundaries that are well set, all the other person's trying to do is make sure that they have what they need so that they can stay in relationship with you.
Right.
And I think that there is that kind of internalization risk. So even from the last example we gave, one of the kind of beliefs that we can end up internalizing if we're not careful is they're setting a boundary because my behavior is not acceptable. Well, whether it is or it isn't is really just a matter of discussion between the two of you. And again, there's no judge. So it's just you versus me. That's it. So it's not the case in most cases that behavior itself is like objectively unacceptable outside of clear patterns of abuse, etc. But we can end up internalizing that as, oh, that behavior is not acceptable. Take even something like infidelity. There are many marriages that have continued after infidelity has already occurred. And in that way, the behavior is not acceptable, sure, assuming a monogamous relationship is the foundation. Well, actually, even there, honestly, infidelity is the kind of breaking of the fidelity contract, however it is constructed. So infidelity would be a stepping out of that contract, however it is constructed, monogamy notwithstanding. But anyway, perhaps the behavior itself is not acceptable. It's just not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about what the other person needs in order to be in this relationship and whole in this relationship. So a conversation about boundaries isn't about your own behavior. It's not about you, even if it seems like it is.
Right. And it can be hard in that moment to believe that, like, no, it's not about me. It is about the other person. There's nothing inherently wrong with me or what I'm doing necessarily. It's, subjective, as we were saying, besides cases of abuse. But that's why I think the soft boundary setting at first can be helpful for the receiver, because I do think that with a harder approach, my hunch is that the person on the receiving end of that would be more likely to internalize that.
Exactly. So you're triggering their defenses, you're triggering their identity threats. And if ever you want to see, people so often talk about how they're struggling for motivation. You want to see a motivated individual threaten their identity. You will see a lot of motivation toward protecting that identity immediately. So is that what you're trying to get out of your partner? Or are you trying to get understanding? If you're trying to get understanding, quit triggering them. You have the power. You don't necessarily have the responsibility to manage all and navigate all their triggers. That's also theirs. And that's why we wrote part 3, right? Like, navigate your own shit, get out of your own way, and listen to what the other person's needing from you rather than making this about you. But simultaneously, if you are trying to set a boundary with somebody else or communicate anything with anyone else, help them out. Give it to them in a way that they can receive easier, so they don't have to do some added tap dancing to even begin the conversation.
Right. It's like, what's your goal with this conversation? Do you want understanding from the other person? If so, maybe try a softer approach. If you want defensiveness from the other person, then maybe do a harder boundary the first go round. Obviously, if you've tried to set this boundary in softer ways a few times now, then yeah, I'd say it's fair game to go the hard route. But yeah, I think that's like a good way to put it. It's like, do you want understanding or do you want defensiveness? And craft your approach whichever way you want this conversation to go.
Absolutely. And have a plan. A thing that I'll often say to individuals is if your heart is still racing, you're not ready to talk to the other person about this. If you don't have a plan for how you're going to navigate both your own triggers and theirs going into the conversation, you're not ready to have it. And if you try to have it, you're going to walk away with all sorts of accusations for how the other person didn't handle the conversation very well. It's on you, bro. If you go into a conversation with no real good plan for how to navigate how they might be triggered or defensive, or how you might be triggered or defensive, you haven't established a plan, so you're not ready yet. You need to look inward, especially if it's a more important conversation. If it's a small thing, right? Like, if it's something about like checkout line behavior and or whatever else, not that big of a deal. You don't have to have a big old plan for it. But if it's a big conversation about a bigger boundary that's more important to you, have a plan and don't deliver this conversation before you're ready for it.
Right. I think a lot of times people do come into these conversations like activated and not fully with a plan.
Right.
They just expect the other person to just accept it and be like, "Yep, you're totally right. I will completely change. Thank you."
Exactly. Yeah. How often do we see that?
Never. Almost never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And usually if you do see it, it's because of fear. I'm so afraid of you or losing you that I will comply. Way to develop a balanced relationship.
Yikes.
You were talking about this idea of the slow escalation from softer to harder and the fairness of it. It's not only fair to the person setting the boundary. I've tried to set it in softer ways. I've tried to navigate your triggers and defensivenesses. I've tried multiple ways. Now it's fair for me to go harder at this. It's not only fair to that person, it's also fair to the recipient, to the person that you're trying to communicate with. If I stay at soft boundaries and then all of a sudden I leave, often the other person is saying like, where did they, what? I'm completely blindsided. We were soft boundary setting and I wasn't getting it and I didn't understand. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. And then all of a sudden you're gone. Like, where was that intermediate step where you're like, hey, no, seriously, this is a very big deal to me. It makes me question whether I can stay in the relationship. And I'm really, really asking you to hear me. That is a gift, a kindness, a care for the other person. That's the nice thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could see going from just soft to, okay, I'm leaving the relationship. The other person's like, wait, what happened? What happened? Yeah, if there is care in the relationship, if you care about this other person, taking care, and obviously you want to take care of yourself. You should take care of like needs that are not being met. But if there's care both ways, then yeah, navigate the conversation with care and love.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say in the way of boundaries before we wrap up this conversation?
I wonder if you would be open to doing a little role play of the escalation from soft to hard. Are you open to that?
I am open.
Cool. I suppose I can try to be the boundary setter since I'm trying to talk about that. And maybe you can just be defensive at first.
Yeah, great idea. Let's do some
or perhaps we could kind of talk about how it could go to receive as well as how it could be to be defensive. What should I set a boundary about? What did you do to me?
Maybe I
got one. Do you have one?
No, you go. And I'll just improv.
So we're friends and you keep coming late to everything.
Ooh, good one. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's 15 minutes after the movie's already started. I was looking forward to hanging out with you, blah, 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 blah. And so you roll up and you're a little bit late. First time that happens, I'm probably just going to accept it and note it and see if it happens again. So now we're at the second time. You roll in again late for the weekly movie hang or whatever else. Firstly, I'm going to notice that that's happened. And secondly, after the case, I might say something like, "Hey, Ali, I'm really loving this weekly movie hang that we're doing. I'm wondering if next week is it at all possible to maybe try to make it a little bit closer to on time? It just would mean a lot to me. I love getting a chance to hang out with you and talk with you before the movie."
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I tried. It just like traffic is just so terrible getting here, and I try to like leave with enough time, and it just it's nothing about like you. Like I care about our friendship. I just like, oh gosh, it's the road leading up to this movie theater is just like crazy.
So let's pause there and analyze. Did that person actually agree to the boundary?
No.
Nope. Said a lot of nice things, didn't agree to the boundary, right?
Uh-huh.
They might be communicating, "I can't meet this boundary." They might be saying, "Well, after work, I leave right away. There's really nothing I can do." And, tough cookies. They might be saying, like, "Even though I care about this, I still can't do it."
Yeah.
It's entirely possible that's what they're saying. So if that's the case, it was still fair for me to ask. It's still nice that the other person responded the way that they did, but we've got a degree of uncertainty here, and that felt really natural for what might actually happen in a real relationship. Is like you could imagine me then going to my other friends and being like, "I tried to tell Allie that I'm tired of her coming to the movie late," and she's like, "Yeah, but it's just traffic." And I'm like, "But you should leave earlier, like you should just leave earlier." And
right.
So you could imagine how I could spin a tail off of this that isn't actually connected to what you just said.
Right. So where does the boundary setter person go from here? Do they accept that, okay, this person, it's nothing to do with me personally? Maybe they're just, they can't physically get here on time, or do they ask again?
Right. So let's go to weekly movie hang part 3. You roll in late. I'm going to let you have the first line because you got to whisper something to me as the movie's going.
Okay. Hey, so sorry. I left as soon as I could. Again, there was so much traffic. Oh my God, so happy to see you.
It's good to see you too. The movie goes along. Notice I did not engage, by the way. I didn't engage. So sorry, etc. Perhaps after the fact, I say, I'm still whispering as if we're still in the movie theater. Okay, so after the fact, perhaps I say something like, "Hey, I appreciated that you said that you were sorry showing up a little bit late again today. I do just want to say, like, it does bother me. It does like get to me, and I just wanted to bring it back up because it is a thing that does still bother me."
Well, I feel really bad that it bothers you, and I don't want to upset you, and like I care about our friendship. I don't know. I hear you. Next time I can try to leave even earlier, like even earlier than I think is necessary. And if I get here early and I wait at the bar for a bit, so be it. I'm
That's
sorry.
really kind. Oh, that's really, really kind of you. Thank you. And it would mean a lot to me. I just want to hang out with you, and it would mean a lot to me if you would try.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My intention was not to be late again. But I will try. I will be more mindful and try a little harder.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It would really mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're late for hang number 4.
Oh man, even after that.
Well, we've all had that kind of relationship,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Like, yeah.
No, this is realistic. This is good. I'm sorry. I swear I left early. I swear I left early. I'm so sorry. I did all I could. I can't. I don't know. I can't figure this out. I can't figure out how to get here on time. I swear I don't mean to hurt you. I really don't.
So let's check in about Allie's character's state of mind here, right? Like there's almost shame in it at this point.
I think I feel a lot of shame. I feel like I'm a bad friend. I feel like you think I'm not considerate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So now even the recipient of the boundary starts with those tails. You know, we talked about in the Boundaries Part 3 article, my behavior is not acceptable. We start to internalize that.
Yeah.
At no point has Adam said that. But if I'm paying attention, I should detect that that's happening to my friend, right? If I'm able to. So I got a choice to make here. Do I keep setting this boundary and keep risking that shame? Do I try to help them navigate some of their triggers and defensiveness, etc.? Often noticing can be a really powerful skill here. I might open with, hey, I can tell, or maybe I'm wrong, but it feels to me like you're like feeling a lot of shame about this.
Yeah, I am, Adam. I want to be a good friend to you, and I know like you communicated to me that like this was really bothering you, and I really value our friendship. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't get it together. I can't get here in time.
And there's nothing wrong with you. You are a good friend. It does bother me. I guess maybe one of the things I can ask is like, do you think it's possible to get here on time and we're just like trying to figure out a strategy, or do you think it's just not actually possible?
I don't know. Maybe at this movie theater at this time it's not possible. Maybe if we like try for like a later showing.
Okay, yeah. So, all right. So now we could time out. Now we could look at potential compromises. Because I asked a question, we can have a conversation. Because I noticed the shame, we're not having to put Allie under the cosh quite so much. And now we could start to find solutions. Imagine if way back then, after time 1, I had said, or time 2 maybe, I had said something like, if you're going to keep coming late, I'm not going to do this. Are we having a conversation about, oh, well, maybe we could go to a different theater? Could we try a different time? Maybe a different activity, maybe a different day? We're not having that conversation. Be like, Adam's being a dick.
No. And I feel like on my end, I feel like you're not taking into account like my efforts to get here on time, even like the traffic, and like that I do care, you know, on your end, the assumption, the subtext of that is like, wow, like Allie does not give a crap about me and she's not even trying.
Exactly. Right. So we skipped all the relationship work that we need to do to make sure that everybody feels safe. And so let's imagine on my side, you've come late twice. We had plans. You came late twice. It's fair for me to be a bit hurt that you keep not coming on time. It's fair for me to be sitting there in the chair by myself saying like, that's somewhat fair, right? But then I say something, and we so often conflate the fairness of our feelings with the fairness of our actions. So it is fair for me to feel that. Is it fair for me to say, dude, if you keep coming late, I'm just not gonna.
No, you skipped a lot of steps, I think.
Right. So now let's fast forward to time 6, time 7, time 8. We've tried different theaters. We're coming to later shows, and you are still late. Now I might, after all of those conversations, now I might say something like, Allie, you're a good friend. Love you very much. I do want to keep hanging out with you. I just think maybe this movie theater thing isn't quite the right venue for us. So I think I want to stop making this plan moving forward.
I mean, I get it. That's fair. We have had this conversation multiple times. I know that, you know, me being late has been upsetting you, and I've tried, and I just, yeah, it's not working. And I love our friendship too, and maybe we can do something different. I don't know, but that's fair. I understand why you're setting this boundary.
Yeah. I also want to note, I think that's great, and that's a fair potential resolution here. I don't have to set this boundary. I could be feeling those things. I could be sitting in that chair. Why is she? I could be feeling all of those things and not set a boundary. That's a decision. I have to make a decision about whether or not I'm going to. And one way to resolve all of this agita that I'm dealing with is to decide not to care. So what if I'm sitting in the chair by myself for 15 minutes? It doesn't have to matter. I could feel a lot of things and do nothing because I decide to. I actually do have a friend in my world who just is notoriously terrible about actually following through and really
Yeah.
coming to things. I've just accepted about him. He's young. He does this. It's whatever. So, if you make plans with that particular friend, they might or they might not happen. I'll go ahead and have my contingencies in my head. But I could go through this whole painful process of trying to get him to listen and change.
Mhm.
Or I could just sort of be like, that's Bart. His name's not Bart, but that's how Bart is. And I accept that. If he's here, great. If he's not, I'll catch up to him at some point.
Right.
And I have taken that tact with that particular friend. We're fine. He did actually ask me recently. He told me that some friends of his asked him or said something to him about being flaky. He's like, "Do you think I'm flaky?" And I was like, "Well."
Do you want my honest opinion on that? No, it's like it could come to a point where it's like, okay, if I want this friendship, which is a choice too, you don't have to be in this friendship. You can decide, okay, I don't, this friendship isn't of value to me, and I will leave the friendship. That's a choice. Or you can say, okay, yes, this dynamic in our friendship isn't my preference. I wish that Allie was on time, but I've tried, and at this point I've just come to accept that this is who Allie is. Allie's just kind of late sometimes, and it has nothing to do with me or how she values my friendship. But this is how she is.
And that is why boundaries are not about the other person's behavior. They're about our own choices. What do I care about? What matters to me? What do I choose to make an issue out of? Why? And we should tie that to the stuff that's truly very important to us about ourselves and our own goals, our own needs, and our own values.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up this conversation. And I loved this role play. We should do more role plays. We haven't done one in a long time.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Your new quote for the week. If you look for differences, you will find them.
Damn right you will.
I'm going to guess that this was said in the context of a romantic relationship, or like
well, honestly,
dating,
I mean, I do think it shows up there a ton, but I think it shows up in all manner of places.
Okay.
So there's a psychological phenomenon called the narcissism of small differences.
Okay.
The narcissism of small differences essentially describes the fact that it's a cognitive bias. If you and another person have 90% of things in common, the mind tends to focus on the 10% of things that are not in common. So you think about two humans, even two humans from across the globe. There's a person in Chicago and there's a person in Cambodia. Those two individuals share, I believe, over 99% of their genetic material that could be common between the two of them. They're like 99% the same. And I've actually been studying recently, there was a population bottleneck in our history that we all came from about the same 1,280 breeding individuals at one point in time. That's why our genes are so similar, is that there was at one point there was that few people in the entire population, and we all descended from all of them, whether we are from the United States or Southeast Asia. There are other populations within the African peoples that are much more diverse. You take two people from two tribes in certain places in Africa, and they will have much greater genetic diversity than people from let's say Peru and I don't know, somewhere in the Caucasus. So there's those, we have so much in common genetically, but then you also think about the ways that we live our lives. We often follow a very similar cadence. We often value the same things. We're building families all over the world. We're establishing friendships. We enjoy many of the same things. You basically never come across a person who's like, I don't like music. What, at all? I mean, you like some music, maybe not this kind of music. So we end up sort of papering over all of the things that are the same between us, the vast common ground that we share, and we end up hyper focusing on what is different. We both like music, but I'm going to nitpick on the fact that you like indie folk and I like indie rock. That's what we're going to focus on. So, and that's kind of like the thing that I like is so important in this very narrow way that I'm going to develop a kind of narcissism about that tiny difference between the two of us, even though there is so much common ground between us.
I feel like this is a really impactful quote, especially like during these times that are so divisive. And yeah, I can see that it would bode for a lot of conflict in relationships, not just romantic, but friendship and everything. If we're just focusing on like the little differences in each other. Yeah.
Take two football fans. One loves the Browns, one loves the Bengals or something of that nature. Both of those people, I know where they're at on Thursday night, on Sunday night, on Monday night. I know what they're messing with on their phone between meetings at work. They're doing the same thing constantly. They're talking about the same thing. They're consuming the same content constantly, and yet they hate each other because you like the Browns and I like the Bengals. We both like football, and we've lost that. I think about this. I play rec soccer, and like when two teams start fighting with one another, I'm just like, we've both picked the same hobby to put a lot of time, effort, and energy into, to show up at the same place every week and organize major parts of our lives around. And we're fighting like we're the same dude. We're the same dude right now. What are you talking about?
Yeah. What happened to our mutual love for soccer?
Yeah.
Oh man. I think this has been a really great conversation today. I think really applicable to everyone listening. And I hope this was helpful. I have a hunch it is helpful.
Thank you so much, Allie. That was fun.
Yeah, that was so fun. All right, everyone. We will see you next week.
Doodly-doo.